you, Elizabeth, for your hard work. Paul Webster is a policy and legislative analyst. Hi, Paul. Are you saying, did you say hi? Thank you. Paul is a policy and legislative analyst who most recently serving as a senior policy advisor in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. He has more than 12 years of experience serving in the U.S. House of Representatives as a legislative and issues manager for several members of Congress, and served in the California State Legislature as a district director for an assembly member and senator. I don't know if they were attorneys. And now, of course, we are very, very proud to introduce you to Sheriff Alex Villanueva, our 33rd Sheriff of Los Angeles County, serving all Angelinos. So you can give him a round of applause. I know we're being very considerate, but please give him a round of applause. Thank you so much for that. So I could have shared all of the sheriff's remarkable achievements throughout his career, but instead, I will share a very personal story of the day the sheriff met my son Joshua as an example of the man he is and why he is our sheriff and why we give him our support. As a happenstance, my 10-year-old son ran into the sheriff on the day he had his very first real encounter with rejection and defeat. He was broken and disillusioned, and I'm sorry, I'm a mother, I might get emotional. The sheriff knew exactly what to say. He shared his personal experience of defeat and the courage he found to keep standing up for his beliefs and desire to make a difference for all. Now, those were not his words. I promise, and I wrote this out, of course, that I do promise that he sounded a lot better than I, and more impressive than the way I'm putting it. The sheriff used his own experience to validate, motivate, and enroll my son in never giving up on his dreams. A great leader is one that can instill in others the courage, education, and heart necessary so that they too can one day become great leaders. And you do that day in and day out. You teach all of us how to show up and how to be better so that one day we can lead as well. Thank you for that. Now, Sheriff, would you please lead us in the conversation tonight? I think we're going to show a video. Is that correct?
Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. That was 172 years compressed into 2.5 minutes. So it moved kind of fast. You saw the progression, but what we started as, we were literally the end of the Wild West, was LA County. And we've had challenges. We had challenges back then. We have challenges today. Both occasions, life-threatening challenges. Ones that challenge our sense of security, peace, well-being. And what can we do in law enforcement? What can we do as a community coming together to collaborate, work together, share our resources, and come up with solutions to the pressing problems of today? And we know what they are. We know it's a homeless crisis spinning out of control. We know it's violent crime. We know political corruption. There's all these things. And now I have mayoral candidates talking about those three things. Imagine that. So I think we're in the right direction. In this room, there's so many wonderful people that come here to share ideas, that have resources, that have big plans, and we'll have a chance to talk about some of those things. But today I took the time. I was in Mid-Wilshire, and then I went down to visit the Promenade in Venice. I just wanted to get a quick snapshot of today. So we came up with some photos. This is all taken today. So let's see. Okay, that was on Fairfax by Wilshire. You may recognize the place, and you see the homeless tent right in front of the cafeteria, the restaurant. You think that impacts the business? Quite a bit, right? Question is, that business, how many people does it employ? Could be out of business. Will it ever be open again? Unlikely. Let's go on to, here we go. This is the Promenade today. Santa Monica. Okay. I took the photo only because it seemed like the advertisement in the window and the individual experiencing homelessness on the sidewalk was quite a contrast in messaging. But it was kind of notable. So we got that one. Keep going. And if you notice, there's a lot of empty retail space in the Promenade. And a lot of people in different stages of experiencing homelessness occupying all the available seating. Keep going. There's another one. And this one here, also another one that kind of the juxtaposition of the messaging and the image of the gentleman experiencing homelessness and highly visible retail. Now, now we're in Venice. That's by Centennial Park. And that's Centennial Park. That's today. And that's the street right across from Centennial Park. And the pile of trash is just beyond those tents right there. Is that the last one? All right, so this is today, images of today. And how did we get here? What happened over the last 5-10 years that the homeless situation exploded? Well, I can tell you something simple. In 2011, there was 39,000 homeless in LA County. That was the count. 2021, the estimate was 83,000. So it grew by more than 100% in 10 years. Now, anyone who runs a business, if your whole goal is to create something, eliminate something, but you see it's a spectacular failure year after year and gets bigger, at one point do you say, what I'm doing is not working? Well, the folks involved in city and county government either never had that conversation or they had it and they kept it to themselves and just said, well, just keep going that direction. When the entire world is screaming, we need to be going that way, they're going that way. Why? Simple reason. What does every city councilman want to be? Mayor. Get reelected. What does every mayor want to be? Governor. What does every governor want to be? President. See how this works? If your number one priority in life is to get reelected, how do you make your decisions? You're constantly weighing the outcome and the impact of your potential current constituents or your future constituents. That is how you weigh the world and what you decide to do or not to do. And this is something that's true. We don't have a monopoly on this. This is across the entire nation. However, the results are very tragic. And when you have a humanitarian crisis unfolding like homelessness, it gets magnified tenfold, that drama. Because we need people in public office that are going to make decisions, heaven forbid, that actually advance the public's interests, not their narrow political interests. It's as simple as that. The problem we have in the Sheriff's Department that I've had is I find a lack of political will to just fix what's broken. Lord, there's a sanitation department, right, in the city of LA. A pile of trash that's 6 feet tall. That doesn't happen overnight. How difficult it is to keep your streets clean. I took a photo once where the Shrine Auditorium is, and the 110 freeway, there's an underpass that goes right to the north side of the Shrine. The entire length of the south sidewalk was covered in trash about 3 feet tall, from one side of the freeway all the way to the other. That didn't happen overnight. When did our politicians stop trying? When did that happen? And the bigger question is, why do we as voters let them get away with it? Our priorities needed one that we have to hold all elected officials accountable, and I have to be held accountable too, directly by you as the voters. But we have solutions, we have resources, we have people with great ideas, and they're coming to the table. And we met 3 today. Can we put them on blast right now? Is that possible?
I'm sure it's okay.
Could I have the 3 of you stand up? Actually, I want to take the occasion to introduce all 3. If you could briefly, sir.
Isaac Shomoff, and I'm the owner of the landlord of the Sears building in downtown LA.
Sears building. Think this guy can move the needle on homelessness?
Jimmy Shomoff, and I work with the Shomoff Group.
He's being very modest. His family has also made a very generous donation to get the ball rolling on this. And last but not least,
Bill Terabina, a Sicilian mafia guy that's helping these guys.
thank you guys. But we have people at the table that want to get things done. We need politicians to learn how to get things done. Not come up with excuses, not come up with more layers of bureaucracy. Here's a prime example of adding a layer of bureaucracy. Remember the tragic murder of Gabriel Fernandez? That was followed by Anthony Avalos. Then it was followed by Noah Quattro. And then we lost count because of the pandemic, and our SCARS reporting was cut in half. So we had no longer eyes and ears on kids coming to school. So Lord knows what we don't know, which is scary. So what was the response of the Board of Supervisors? They have a Department of Children and Family Services, right? They appoint the director. They're the executive and the legislative branch of county government. So they are in charge of DCFS. They appoint the director, but who is ultimately responsible for the product of DCFS? The Board of Supervisors. So when all these tragedies happen, what do they come up with? We'll create the Office of Child Protection. So they added a layer of bureaucracy to distance themselves further from their incompetence. So they have now 2 layers of people to blame for what goes bad, and it's still them. Remember, you can delegate authority, you can't delegate responsibility. I should send that as a note to the board. Could we do that? And that is a problem with county government and city government. Byzantine disasters where nothing gets done, the buck gets passed, no one's responsible for anything, but everyone wants to control everything. Oh yes. So we went to Venice to see what we could do on the boardwalk. And the hue and the cry from everybody, oh my God, the sheriff doesn't know his jurisdiction. And I said, well, I looked at the map, Santa Monica seems to be in LA County. So okay, so I'm in the right county, right? And I find a councilman telling all of the city employees not to assist the sheriff's department. Whoever heard of that? My idea is, how can we help? That should be the first and foremost thing out of everybody's mouth. How can we help the situation? Not how can we create more obstacles. How can we help? If they can't figure that out, maybe they need to leave. Because the whole role of government, the public sector, is to represent your interest, to fix things that individuals cannot fix. Collectively, we have a problem with homelessness. We have a problem with violent crime. Government has a role. We're not the cure-all, end-all of everything, as some people want to believe. No, there are limitations. But there are things that we can do collectively on behalf of the people that can make the world a safer place. The homeless crisis is primed and is teed up for exactly that, because we can create partnerships with the private sector, the nonprofit sector. We spent $6.5 billion over 10 years on homelessness. Yes, $6.5 billion, that's 9 zeros, count them, only to see the problem double. And I have an entire sector, ideological sector in LA County saying it's housing first. The mantra is housing first. You got to build a lot. It's affordable housing crisis. And ask yourself, a guy who smokes meth 24/7, how much rent would it require to get him properly housed? How much rent do you think that person can afford? And that's the whole point. Another one is, it's a dynamic problem, not a static one. You build 10,000 units, great, you house 10,000 people. Now you got 15,000 more that showed up. They want their housing too. Every single person who shows up out of LA County here actually takes away from the resources of the people here in LA County that need it. We have an obligation to care for our brothers and sisters, the ones that fall on hard times, the ones that have mental illness, substance abuse. That is our moral obligation, our imperative. However, someone from Minot, North Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma City, Rantoul, Illinois, yes, I was there once. Their obligations belong to those states, not to California, not to LA County. I have to defend my ability to care for our local people. And this is where it's a national problem. We have 1/4 of the entire nation's homeless population is in LA County. 1/4. We have half of the state's homeless population is right here in LA County. Great weather, great free stuff, no consequence, you can do whatever you want, a DA who won't prosecute anything. What more could a tweaker ask for? And that's why you see them all over the place. And the funny thing is that politicians are astounded by this. They don't seem to get it. Build it and they will come. Wasn't there a whole movie about that? Well, build that and they'll come too, as we saw in the photos. Promenade, Santa Monica. One of my favorite pet peeves. The Santa Monica City Council, in their infinite wisdom, said, well, we're going to actually convert parking lot 3 into a homeless shelter. Great. All the business owners think that was a swell idea. Hey, that's definitely what we need to really attract more tourism to the promenade. The sad thing, suitable real estate, built structures that could be converted into shelter a mile away, available, that they're bypassing to destroy the promenade. Why? What is wrong with these people? It's frightening. And so you see the promenade, half of the stores are vacant. The parking structures are where all the homeless sleep and use them as their toilets. So imagine trying to attract tourists to your business on the promenade. They have to wade through human filth to get there. It's not going to happen. There's always going to be a greener pasture somewhere. Venice Boardwalk, 340 businesses, 10,000 employees, and Mike Bonin was going to give the entire thing away. Just out of sight, out of mind, oh well. Today the boardwalk is clean, tourists are back, the businesses are open because we took the time to care. And we got people to do their job. It shouldn't be this hard. We need to do this all over LA County. We need to regulate public space, return it to its proper use as public venues. We need to provide the shelter space. We need to increase the mental health capacity, substance abuse capacity. Those are the big ticket items we need to do. And for the people that somehow believe that they have a God-given right to occupy public space and smoke dope, I'm sorry, your days are numbered. No. I can say no, and I'm the most compassionate person in the crowd saying no, because the people insist on the status quo. They look the other way when 5 people a day die on the streets in LA County. 5 a day. Last year alone, over 1,600 deaths from the people, from the politicians still waiting for the housing first to be built. It ain't gonna happen. It'll never, they cannot build their way out of a problem that gets bigger than the rate at which they can build it. And the rate at which they can build housing really sucks to begin with. So let's keep it honest. So that's where we're at today. We got some good questions. I know I get off on a soapbox for a while here. Sorry about that.
Jeff is here.
And we have Jeff here. There's the one and only. I have some new friends, Jeff, you need to meet right over here. Bill will make the proper introductions. And we're going to hear from Jeff and from Anna Denise Briz from our mental evaluation team. So we'll have some good information for that. But let's go back to...
No, that's who we're going to hear from first.
Oh, from first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or unless you'd rather not.
Well, actually, you know, when we go through the questions, it actually ends up popping up.
Okay.
So let's go to the Alliance
Okay,
first.
Great.
All right, sir. Okay, all right. So I just want to point out that he gets his own mic and we have to share a mic. And he gets his throne and we get our seats. Oh? Me? I don't think that's me.
Okay, you know what?
You go ahead.
Sir, let's escort her out. For the record, people, if you're unaware,
Alex, you're a fucking punk, bro. You're a punk. Show your fucking tail. Google LASD gang. You talk all that shit on
folks,
Instagram Live.
let's have a round of applause for the people who are leaving.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry for that, folks, but we knew it was going to come. Let me give you a little background story. The First Lady's outburst, they're upset that they were outed on Tuesday. Actually, no, today's Thursday, Wednesday, because they filed a fake claim against the county alleging that we harassed them. And here's another one right here. There's more of them. So, here's the sad reality, folks. The people that are doing all the screaming and yelling right now, when they're confronted with the cold, hard facts, it really upends their world. Especially when they put a fake claim against the department. And you remember the body-worn camera program that we initiated? Well, one of the benefits of the body-worn camera is that we get to find, okay, that's what the allegation is. Let's go to the... And this is another one right here. Hey, you know what?
Murdered Paul Rea, the executioners fucking murdered Andres Guardado. You want to talk about the civil rights violations in Twin Towers?
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
How your deputies killed Jelani Lovett? You want to talk about that, Alex? Do you want to talk about that? You ain't got shit to say about that. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. Your deputy gang. Talk about that. Your stupid ass fucking thing out of my face. Alex, look at you. Look at you. You're the one with all the people. You're the one with all the people. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
You don't talk to law enforcement.
All right, folks, listen up. Remember our rules of conduct. Disorderly conduct is not permitted.
Apparently they have more air lungs than facts, but that's what it is. They did the same thing in the LA mayoral's race. It's a small group of activists that believe they're rushing the stage, making a commotion is somehow going to advance a cause. Yet, when we have body-worn cameras, when we hold our deputies accountable, yesterday I terminated the 139th employee of my department since I took office. for violating department policy. And I can't fire people twice. I can only do it once. So when they say that we don't hold people accountable, they really actually don't like the act. The reality is that we hold people accountable. But bottom line is, the overwhelming majority of law enforcement officer-involved shootings across the nation, the overwhelming majority are legal and justified. Are they tragedies? Yes. Each and every one is a tragedy because someone lost a loved one. There's no way around that, and that is a grim reality.
How about holding the cops who took pictures of Cocaine accountable? Nothing happened to them, right? I bet that's what you guys hear about. Oh, nothing happened to them.
So, unfortunately, they're there. But when you look at the big picture, effectively, there's some, they even put themselves fancy titles. They represent the people's something. But they're self-appointed, accordingly, represent the people. And and then you have different groups doing the same nonsense. It doesn't advance their cause. In fact, when we were on the boardwalk, the one gentleman in the yellow sweater, he was there screaming at us and with the homeless people, and he was actually frightening them while we were having to do outreach on the boardwalk. So their motives are very counterproductive. We've offered them to please take shelter, but they don't seem interested in that. And the fact that we have people here that are productive, want to come together to help, that's not helping anybody. So whoever pays their activism, I'd be interested to know who it is, but they definitely don't represent the interests of the community for sure. But sorry for the disruption, so I'll give it back to you.
Should I go? You gonna come back up? You want to keep yelling? You want me to continue? All right, I'll take 2 steps and see what happens. Okay, Elizabeth Mitchell, LA Alliance, much less important than the guy on the throne. I'll get through it quickly. Also, I'm cold, so I will talk fast. So everywhere, I am the attorney for LA Alliance. Everywhere we go and people we talk to always want to know the same things. Who the heck are you? What do you want? And what's going on with the lawsuit? So I will answer those 3 questions, and then I'll turn it over to the policy guy, Paul Webster, who is our executive director. So the LA Alliance came together as just a small group of pissed off people, somewhat unlike our friends on this side, who actually wanted to see something productive happen, right? Who wanted to see something move forward with the city of Los Angeles, with the county of Los Angeles. We're sick of the status quo. We're sick of the same thing happening over and over and over again, and realize that the only thing city and county listens to are lawsuits. And so they came to me. I'm a former city attorney. I actually was in our police litigation division for about a dozen years, defending police officers from similar screams like that. And so we put together this pretty great, pretty novel complaint. It was something that nobody had ever done before. We went and we talked to the Board of Supervisors, we talked to County Council, we talked to City Council, and we had about half people that were kind of on board with what we were trying to do. The other half didn't think it was going to work and told us to pound sand, and so we moved forward. And that small group of pissed off people has grown into, frankly, a big group of pissed off people, of people that are just so frustrated with the status quo, frustrated with those photographs that we're seeing, frustrated with the lack of movement, but also people that feel compassion. And I think to the sheriff's point, you can speak with both conviction and compassion at the same time. And so people, I think, are really interested in that model. So what are we trying to do? And let me actually answer the question, do we just represent downtown interests? And the answer is no. We started as a group of small Skid Row folks and have now blossomed into the entire city and the entire county. So we welcome everyone's participation. Paul has a bunch of cards, and so we're always happy to talk to you. But to the answer of what do we want now, actually it's not too dissimilar from what the sheriff said. We want shelter, we want services, and we want clean and safe streets, and we want all 3 of them now, and we think they can all work together. So, and what I mean by that, I mean immediate shelter. I don't mean $800,000 a door units, because you can do it faster. You can get people off the street immediately. You can do it for $10,000 to $20,000 a bed, which is actually financially financially feasible for the city, for the county. They have the money right now if they chose to use it. It's about priorities. So we want that now. We want shelter, and I don't think the sheriff's going to be sad to hear that's on the county. It's the county's complete failing. They're failing in the mental health. They're failing in public health. They're failing in drug rehabilitation. They're frankly failing in the jails to streets cycle that we're seeing repeatedly. They're not funding the jails properly. They're not funding the sheriffs properly. And they are consistently failing in their obligations across the board on the services aspect. So that's what we're looking for from services. And then when I say safe streets, I mean exactly what we're talking about. You can, again, speak with conviction and compassion at the same time, right? People do not belong on sidewalks. They do not belong at parks. And as long as we let them, it will be more attractive to people throughout the country. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people that have become, and I know them, and I talk to them regularly, actually represent a couple who have become homeless for economic reasons, right? They lost their job, they have medical bills, they have, come on hard times, but the statistics show about 80% of those people self-resolve, right? They're able to get back and sort of get back off of the streets on their own. About 20% of the people end up on the streets, they stay on the streets, they end up turning to drugs to compensate or to cope with the trauma. And so now you have an ongoing down 30%. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that statistic. I thought it was 30% what?
Oh, no.
No, not on drugs, but they turn to drugs to cope with the trauma. 20,000 kids that are currently homeless in Los Angeles? I don't think that's right. You only have about 60,000 people that are homeless in Los Angeles County right now. You're saying 1/3 of the homeless individuals are kids, are under 18? Okay, I don't think that's what the statistics show, but if you can show me something different, I'm happy to take a look at it. Okay, thank you. Well, if that's true, that's sad. 20,000 homeless kids is horrible. You have about, if you look at the Cal Labs numbers, you have about 68%. I'm sorry, sir, who are you? Ryan Thompson. Nice to meet you, Ryan. Okay, so what's your next question? Did they become homeless for reasons other than drug use? I don't think those statistics exist. Do you? I agree. The data's not up there. Oh, thank you, LT. Okay, so yeah, continue. I appreciate that you know those statistics. And in fact, Paul will talk to you about the data. He's a data nerd, and he's really into that. So, okay, so you have a significant problem with folks, even who are not mentally ill, who are not drug addicted, that ultimately become mentally ill or drug addicted as a result of the trauma on the streets, right? And so because of that, it is for various reasons, for physical health, mental health, and for economic health, for societal health, unhealthy to allow people to stay on the streets. So that's what we're going for. We're going for shelter, we're going for services, and we're going for clean and safe streets, and we want them all now. And that's what we wanted when we filed this lawsuit, and that's what we continue to advocate for. So the final question, what is going on with the lawsuit? Now, I can tell you there's stuff I can't tell you. Isn't that exciting? So we have ongoing settlement negotiations that stalled for about a year while the city and the county fought me like hell. And we're back in settlement negotiations because they're going to lose. Because we're on the right side. So we have a lot of novel legal arguments. There's no doubt about that. But they're good legal arguments. They're valid legal arguments. I think a lot of people thought the Ninth Circuit kicked us out. They did not. They overturned Judge Carter's order on procedural grounds. We're back in, and we're back involved in settlement negotiations. I hope to have something more substantive that I can tell you soon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Paul. He's the policy guy and the brains behind a lot of this, and he can, I think, tell you more about the background of it.
Thank you. love being called the data nerd and the policy guy. That's okay. Thank you so much for coming out and being so interested in this issue. So I did a lot of work in Washington, D.C., did a lot of work for HUD. I got very, very intimate with the what's called the Notice of Funding Availability for the Federal Homelessness Assistance Program, the regulations with respect to the federal government's homeless assistance program. And I can tell you for a fact that the problems that we're seeing in Los Angeles are the result of policies from Washington, D.C. that have trickled down to Sacramento and then trickled down to the city council and the county. And so a lot of these policy issues are resulting in significant challenges. And unfortunately, the folks on the ground, when you drive to work, when you drive to the store and you see these humanitarian crises on the streets, your natural instinct is to go to your city council or your mayor. And unfortunately, for a lot of these things, the city council and the mayor are relatively handcuffed. But here's the big challenge. There's two questions that every community is asking when they're confronted with the humanitarian crisis of homelessness. The first question is, where can people go? And that has to do with not only the issue of affordable housing, but the lack of treatment, the lack of step-down care, the lack of adult residential facilities. And the second question that people ask is, what happens when they get there? Why are we seeing the same people recidivating, going into jail, being observed for 5150 psychotic evaluations for 72 hours, and then coming back on the street? Why are we seeing people with serious mental illness, whether they were mentally ill before they became homeless and their illness drove them to the streets, or they became mentally ill because of the powerful psychotic and illegal drugs such as P2P, methamphetamine, and fentanyl that are literally making people psychotic? Why is it that we're seeing this constant cycle of an inability, a lack of places for people to go, and a lack of care and quality care and appropriate care to help them so that we can do a couple of important things on this issue? Get people off the streets and keep them off the streets. So I'm glad that Liz mentioned the Policy Lab study from UCLA from a couple of years ago. There were some very interesting statistics in the Policy Lab study. One of the, I think the most important was out of a survey of about a little over 6,000 unsheltered individuals throughout the country, they found that the issues of and trimorbidity were significant drivers in terms of the cost and impacts of communities of what happens when you fail to, number one, provide for places for people to go, and number two, give them quality care once they get there. And the issues are this: you have 78% of folks who have some type of mental illness addiction among the unsheltered, according to the Policy Lab study. You've got 75% of the individuals who indicate some kind of drug addiction, and you've got something like 80% of trimorbidity, with 50% on trimorbidity of both mental illness, substance abuse, and some kind of physical disability or physical medical issue, all three combined. And when I talk to folks who are involved with shelters or involved with helping people, what they say is that everybody on the street's on meth, they have some form of schizophrenia, and they're diabetic. And when you combine those three things, it is a very cruel experience on the streets. But unfortunately, what's happening is because our public policies from the federal government and the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles focus on this notion that housing is a clinical intervention that will provide clinical outcomes. I used to have a boss, he said, they're leaning the wrong ladder against the wrong wall. But because that's our policy priority, we're seeing the results that we see. And so what we're advocating for is three very important things: more places for people to go that are outside the preferences of the federal government and the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles. We have to do it with the lawsuit. Why? because we've seen what happens when we leave that to political priorities or bureaucrats. The promises get broken and the bureaucracy continues to bog down and turn into a logjam. As the sheriff said, nothing happens. So I love the sheriff. I think the sheriff said we need to get stuff done. And when I first met Liz and some of the other folks at the LA Alliance, they said, if you want to get shit done, you sue people. And so I like that, particularly when what you're trying to get done is create more places for people to go and better outcomes when they get there. Get people off the street, keep them off the street. How do you keep people off the street? You provide them adequate places for them to go so that they can receive the kind of treatment, the kind of services that are going to help them stop recidivating back to the streets. And then the next thing, the third thing as part of our lawsuit, is to regulate public spaces. So a few weeks, probably about a month or so ago, there was an article in the LA Times, I see your hand, in the LA Times that talked about Houston. Houston did a couple of things very, very interestingly. The first thing that they did, I see your hand too, so I'll get to you.
Questions will be addressed at the end.
So a couple of the interesting things that Houston did is while the federal government was incentivizing the creation of permanent supportive housing that's expensive and costs a long time to develop, Houston invested in shelters. And the other thing that Houston did, which is very interesting that we don't do around here, they actually disincentivized living on the street. They created a culture in the city of Houston that says, look, you can be homeless, but you can't be homeless here. But if you do need help, we will help you, but you got to understand we're not going to tolerate you decompensating on the streets. And so Houston has actually done a fairly good job, despite the public policy preferences and the incentives to solely focus practically on the creation of permanent supportive housing. So, one of the things that I do with the LA Alliance is, because I'm not a lawyer, and I don't necessarily want to be, thank you, good advice, is we're working to try to make it easy for the public to raise their voice and put pressure on the city and on the county so that our efforts on the legal side and at the court side are actually matched by the public by saying, what these guys are suing for, we want that too. This isn't something that's come out of left field. This is something that supports our interests. So what I'd like you to do, if you haven't done it already, we have a very easy website. It's la-alliance.org. If you go there, there's places where you can just simply sign up. You can start receiving our email blasts. We have action alerts. We're generating letters to the mayor. We're generating letters to the city council members. We're generating letters to the county supervisors and encouraging them and demanding that they settle our lawsuit so that we can move on, so that we can provide immediate shelter, we can compel the county for treatment and services, and we can start cleaning our streets and regulating our public spaces. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. I know we've got some questions, but I think
We'll take those questions at the end.
Real quick. I think it's a third, and a third. That's what I think I remember, but Jeff will tell me if I'm wrong. I think it's about a third mental illness, a third a third drug addiction, a third mental illness or physical disability, and about a third people become homeless for economic reasons. That's my prediction, but I think Jeff is going to talk, right?
Yeah, sure, of course, it's true. Okay, we're going to be going to questions, sir. Is that okay?
And for the record, I have reached out to the court, to Judge Carnes. I am more than happy to volunteer to be the one who gets it all done. I
might be calling you to testify.
I would love to have access and the authority to access all the resources of the county and the city, because our department is horrifically defunded and understaffed, yet the unofficial name of the sheriff's department is, the get the shit done department. and we will make it happen. So,
Well, and I just want to touch on that, Sheriff. So we need to be very vigilant about this issue. Remember when I said that this is an issue of policy from the federal government down to the states, down to the city and the county. This is not going to be solved necessarily just because locally we get stuff done. Because the handcuffs are still on the localities. The handcuffs are still on the localities with respect to affordable housing. Just ask any developer what the price point that they're going to build housing, and it's not going to be low income and mid-level. You can't, it doesn't pencil out. We need to look at the state with respect to funding for addiction and mental illness treatment, not because they're necessarily the main drivers of homelessness, but because they're so woefully underfunded, we don't have places for people to go, and we don't have adequate treatment once they get there. And the third thing we need to do is we also need to be pushing our members of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate, because they're the ones who are incentivizing states, incentivizing communities to use this one-size-fits-all, top-down housing panacea for these complex needs that result in homelessness. They're the ones. I want to know how many people here know the congressperson from Los Angeles that has authority, who is the chairman of the committee that has direct authority over the Department of Housing and Urban Development and all of their homeless assistance programs. Can anybody name that person? You've got your hand up. Can you name the person? No. This is not a process of elimination. There is a Los Angeles congressperson who is the chair of the House Financial Services Committee who has direct authority over, say again? It's Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters has absolute chairmanship authority over authorizations programs, not funding, over HUD and their homeless assistance programs. Yet somehow, she escapes all criticism. So, anyway.
Not anymore.
she also has the highest concentration of homeless in her district.
There you go.
What district is she?
I'm not quite sure.
South LA,
Yeah. Parts
roughly.
of Compton.
Yeah.
Ready, sir? First question. Has crime increased due to the new directives from DA Gascon? Is the DA prosecuting any juvenile cases as adults?
The answer to the first question is the Pope Catholic? Yes, crime has increased, and there's a bunch of things that drive crime, but one of them is the lack of prosecution of people that are caught doing criminal acts. If you don't prosecute, you don't have consequences, people are going to bake that into their formula whether or not they're going to commit crime. Hey, even if I get caught, nothing happens, so yeah, they're going to do it again. So that part, yes. The second part of the equation, what was it?
Is the DA prosecuting any juvenile cases as adults?
Well, does the name Hannah Tubbs ring a bell to anybody? That one is blown up in his face spectacularly because exactly that. He refused to prosecute a violently or sexually violent predator as an adult, even though he was already 26 years of age when he was finally in court on the case, when he was just 2 weeks shy of his 18th birthday. And so there's a lot of backpedaling going on right now, but he has a blanket policy that he's trying to say, well, I have a committee now, but the committee is a kangaroo court, a bunch of public defenders that are going to follow whatever he says, so they're not going to prosecute any juvenile as an adult. So there you have it.
Thank you, sir. Second question is also a two-part question. Has the Board of Supervisors released any funds to open up academy classes? Second question, do you, as sheriff, feel confident that you have enough police officers to assist in the event of any future civil unrest?
Let me answer the second part. We had civil unrest in 2020. We are the most understaffed law enforcement agency in the entire nation. It's not even close. NYPD has 4 cops for every 1,000 residents. LAPD has 2.2 for every 1,000 residents. We're operating on 0.9 deputies for every 1,000 residents. And with that, we're still making miracles happen. It's not sustainable long term. So in the case of a crisis like a civil unrest, for a period of about 2 weeks, end of May into June, we had multiple mobile field force and SWAT teams. We were all over the county, bailing out Santa Monica, Long Beach, Fairfax, Beverly Hills. And it worked, but people were starting to drag towards the end because it was just too much work and not enough rest. Now going to the academy part, we have to have 8 classes a year just to stay even. Without losing is 8 a year. So this year, fiscal year, they gave me 4, which means right now, come April 1st, I'm going to have 9,400 deputies when I should have 10,300. So I'm going to be 927 sworn deputies or officers in the whole, which means my detective division is running at 25% less than they need. Our patrol stations are operating at 72% of available staff, and we've increased the ceiling for overtime for deputies to work a month from 96 hours a month to 120. You know what that means physically? That means you're doing a double, a single, a double, a single, a double the entire month. That was 96 hours. Now at 120, you got to throw in additional hours on top of that. You got to do in 3 more shifts, which meant you're not getting 2 days off either. Now you're doing a double on your day off. And now they have to work 30 days in a row at that pace. The pace is horrific. It's going to result in someone's death. It's going to be a deputy driving home who's just going to fall asleep at the wheel, and they're going to wrap their car around a telephone pole. That's a tragedy that's easy to predict, and the blood is going to be on the hands of the Board of Supervisors. It's also going to result in a bad decision. When you're that blary-eyed working so many double shifts and very little rest, no home life to think of, you can't even see your kids, take them off to school because you're coming and going. They're going to make a mistake. And can we blame them for the mistake they make? We're not being realistic here. So, huge problem there. We need to have 12 classes now a year just to make up for what we lost to get back and get closer to the 10,300. So, big problem there.
Thank you, sir. Are you still issuing CCWs? If so, what does the process look like time-wise, and what is the renewal process?
CCWs takes about 6 to 8 months, start to finish, only because we just do not have enough personnel. We receive a milk crate full of applications every single day in the mail, like clockwork. And I only have, I believe I have 9 background investigators and 1 supervisor. And they're just trying to dig themselves out of the hole. And we have no support from the county in terms of software to go online with the entire system, make it paperless. We get nothing from the county.
Thank you, sir. What is the process to report a person who needs mental health resources? What are our resources?
Well, you know what? Let's, we're going to dial in Sergeant, or actually Lieutenant Breeze now. Yes. I promoted her, then I demoted her, and I had to promote her again to Lieutenant. And she will give us a lot of information, our mental evaluation team, and how to refer people that need that.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. Thank you for the time you've taken to be here. Sheriff, thank you again for your continued support of our MET team. My name is Anna, and I am a lieutenant, and I oversee our mental evaluation team. I'd like to first of all start this off with mentioning the conflict in Europe and just say that my heart goes out to everybody that's affected by this, both in Europe and here. This is going to affect us, and this may be a trigger for a lot of our loved ones, a lot of our veterans that have been to war, a lot of our children that have never experienced war. This is a scary time. We've had to deal with COVID. We're still dealing with COVID, and now this situation, this conflict. So I mention this because I know I'm on high alert. there may be a spike in increase for calls for service dealing with mental health crisis pertaining to this. And I want all of you to be aware of what is available in your communities. Be aware of the resources in the county. What is MET? MET is a team that's an amazing team that started 29 years ago, and it pairs a deputy sheriff along with a licensed mental health clinician from the Department of Mental Health. We don't just use them to consult with, they're our partners. We respond dressed like this. Softer clothes, not a typical police uniform. The work that our team does is not typical police work. It's compassionate. We respect the family members of the homes that we go to. I'm going to talk to you about our MET team briefly, and then also mention a program that the sheriff has actually started called Special Alert. So the partnership with Department of Mental Health, we respond to crisis calls from deputies in the field. Our deputies are highly trained. They receive over 730 hours of specialized training dealing with mental health crisis, mental health diagnosis, suicide, PTSD, crisis negotiations, crisis intervention, verbal de-escalation. The training that our MET deputies receive is wonderful. Not only do we receive that training, but MET provides that training to our own personnel and to other first responders across the nation, not just within our department, but across the nation. Today, our team trained a group of sergeants from our Internal Affairs Bureau, and they were amazed at what they learned and what they didn't know about our MET team. The second thing I want to mention is Special Alert, and it is a program that the sheriff has started where a family or loved one can provide information voluntarily to our local sheriff's station, letting us know about either a mental, intellectual, or physical disability that their loved ones may be suffering from. What that does is it gives us an inkling as to what we are going into when that call comes up. The information is put into our database, the address comes up, information is populated, and we know right off the bat on the front end as we're responding to that home dealing with the crisis what we may be confronted with or how best to help your loved one, how to request one of those MET teams up front when deputies are rolling so that we could help them on the front end. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Melissa.
Let's stand a roll and let's bring over the one and only Lieutenant Jeff Diedrich. He's in charge of our homeless outreach service team, and if he doesn't know it about homeless, it's probably not worth knowing.
Can someone turn on a heater, please? I'm numb. Well, good evening. I'm Jeff Diedrich, and I supervise the Sheriff's Homeless Outreach Services team, along with my partner, Lieutenant Bill Kitchen, who's right there. So what is HOST? First of all, we're a humanitarian effort. It was the first of its kind co-response law enforcement homeless outreach team in Los Angeles County. So what does that mean? It meant we took deputy sheriffs and placed them with civilian outreach partners. And son, your hand's been up a long time. I promise you we'll call on you. That way you can rest your shoulder. I promise we'll call on you. Our team is comprised of deputies with outreach workers from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. We deploy together. And what does that benefit to the community is, one, you have safety and security, and then you have the knowledge of all the homeless outreach components in the county, which are varied, right? Even me as the expert, I'll learn about something tomorrow that'll be a little different than what was yesterday. The homeless component here has so many different fingers. and so many different entities involved. No one person could kind of guide someone, because just when we thought this was the route, we find out that was the route. And so knowing which door to go to and knowing how to get there could only be done with our collaboration, because law enforcement alone couldn't do it. The homeless outreach alone could not do it. So coupling us together was the way to go. So how does it work? Well, traditional law enforcement doesn't work. It never did. It will not in regards to addressing the homeless crisis here in LA County. The host model does. What happened was we were very blessed to have met two very special psychologists who developed a state-of-the-art, what we call crisis stabilization method. And we taught deputies a high-level de-escalation training, but it's more, we call it crisis stabilization because de-escalation sometimes I don't think is the appropriate term. Crisis stabilization, and in that training what it means is this: it teaches them very strong motivational interviewing skills, cultural humility, trauma-informed care, harm reduction, you name it, it's in there. And what it teaches deputies too is you can be strong and compassionate at the same time. And that's a big deal, because when the deputy knows that he or she's there to provide safety and security, but recognizing that she told someone 20 times she doesn't want help, our goal is to make the 21st time that she says yes. So how do you get there? Like I spoke with a gentleman over here, which we'll get some questions later. You can have opposing views and you can be on the other side of the spectrum and still have a civil conversation. But if I was going to speak with this young lady right here, I would say, man, my sister lives in the Palisades. How's it going up there? It's something to key on. So when we go to homeless encampments, it's not just, do you want services? It's how are you? How are you doing? Rapport building, legitimate rapport building. And you can only do it by having the same deputies and the same outreach workers go to the same person every time. Our host team would be an utter failure if we had to rotate personnel through, because she knows that's the guy I talked to yesterday. It's the guy I'm going to talk to tomorrow. So in building the rapport, using our ROAR system of rapport building and using all those things, we found that quite often there's a window of opportunity every single time. You just have to see it. It might be something, a personal property in the homeless encampment. It may be something on the wall of a tent. It may be a necklace, some way to connect with somebody. One, to show you actually care because you noticed it. And two, to be open to a discussion. And then third, that conversation cannot be rushed. I sat on a bucket in a homeless encampment one time for 4.5 hours. That man's been housed for 6.5 years. And at the end of that conversation, and that's a 2-hour class on what happened that day, is I asked him, what made you tell me all this? He goes, you're the first one that asked. And that's all built in this model. So all of our deputies, we are not at the level of training as our MET deputies. We're about halfway there. With all the special training that they get, we are cross-trained with MET, but they're at a higher level with what they do. So each deputy deployed has that special training, additional training in the department, and they're all veteran deputies. Nobody brand new is on my team. And when I say my team, it's our team. I shouldn't say my team. So what do we do with that? Right? We are charged by Los Angeles County to address every homeless encampment in LA County where 5 or more people reside. And so how much work do we have? We're only funded for 4 deputies for the entire county. 4. And the sheriff, when he took office, he added 26. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be standing here. And so what we do is we implement what's called the Los Angeles County Homeless Encampment Resolution Process. And it's a 5-step process that's only adopted by LA County. LA City does not have it. And it's been our protocol now for 10 years. And the 5 steps are identification. Somebody sees a homeless encampment and they report it. Assessment. Our assessment is very complex. Because of the relationships that we have within the county, when we go, we bring our mental health professionals. My partner, Lieutenant Breeze, they go with us. Why? Because you need them there. If you have to call for them, you've already missed your window of opportunity, because the window's right there when someone presents in crisis. So they go with us. Sometimes we don't have everything we need, but we can get it pretty quick. But the assessment, we bring nurses, we bring mental health professionals, substance abuse counselors. Animal control. Why? Because what if that person just needed their dog to get a vaccination? Well, let's get it right now. And there's no cost ways of doing it in the county. So our comprehensive assessment really deals with what all these people have been talking about. The root core. How did you become homeless? Because if you don't know that, you are wasting $12.5 billion because you're not addressing what she needs. If I sit down and talk with her, or one of these special deputies that I brought with me, and they found out that her aunt lived there and her grandma was killed and her brother did this and this is what happened to her, and we find the story of what led her down this path, we can walk her back down the path. We've had people tell us the story and end up saying, well, let's call your aunt. We call the aunt, and next thing we know, you have a very special person near you in the Palisades named Ron Hooks at West Coast Care, who's one of my heroes. He'll get her on the phone with his aunt, and next thing we know, she's back in Idaho being cared for by her family. But it only happens if you ask, and if she's willing to tell you. So I kind of went zigzag there because it's important. The host model works. We have never had to use force or make an arrest to do what I'm telling you. So in 10 years, no force, no arrest, 100% success. And we're not funded. And so we talk about it in humanitarian terms. And I'll tell a story since someone brought up Maxine Waters. I'll tell it at the end though. But back to her, it's important. So the outreach teams, civilian outreach, and we found this by doing a special project for one of the Board of Supervisors. They had done outreach for almost a year and a half in an area and spent almost $2 million. And the problem went from 50 people to 100 people to 125 people. And then the supervisor called us, said, we need your help. In 90 days, every single person was addressed, 0 uses of force, no arrests, and the place is clean, pristine, and it's been that way for 3 years. So we looked back and said, what the hell happened? How did ours work, but the other ones didn't? Because we don't pit ourselves against the civilian outreach. So the psychologists went and analyzed it, and they said, well, here it is. This is why you resonate with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A human being only needs food and water to be alive. What's step 2? Safety and security. So if you don't have safety and security, and she's in a homeless encampment worrying every single night that she's going to be raped, and then if she's seen taking help or being told don't take help or we'll get you, and she doesn't talk, she doesn't engage, she doesn't take the help, you have the problem we have here today. When we're there, the criminal element per se that sometimes infiltrates, or this other turmoil that one feels, when you're relaxed, it's a different thing. And so we looked at that. So, because a lot of people want to pit us against people. That's BS. We need to be unified, not divided. And we can work along with our civilian counterparts because we can provide that safety and security that helps her relax. And we'll even go off to the side, but now she's talking and now she's engaged. Because the studies, and Ryan, I'll address what you brought up, about what happens to women in homeless encampments is horrific. The amount of sexual assaults and violence towards women is horrible. But we have a solution, and we have that blueprint. And so that's why it's very thankful for the sheriff to allow us to bring this to you, because a lot of people don't know about it. And then LAPD lost their team. So they don't have us. They don't have a component like us on the other side. They did, and I went back and found it. January 8th of 2019, I was communicating with the director of homelessness for the Los Angeles Police Department, and we were going to do the first training together about the host first responder model, and we were going to deploy in the field to address a homeless encampment together. That would have been amazing. COVID hit, other things happened, defunding happened, and here I stand alone. So we encourage you, because our HOPE team members on the LAPD were amazing also, but they're gone. And so you need that. One thing about Ryan, to speak to your point, I read the thing the other day. It said 51,000 homeless students in one of the school districts. So what we found too is other people doing statistics are using different terms and different definitions of homelessness. So I actually have a couple emails and phone calls out about that, because my numbers come nowhere near those. But I read this story and I rechecked it, and it said 51,000 homeless students. but I believe the school districts are using a different definition of homelessness. And so I can even follow up with you on that, because that was alarming, but that's why none of us, because it's not in the normal discussion of statistics, that part.
Yeah, there's the Department of Education definition of homelessness is different than the Department of Housing and Urban Development definition of homelessness.
So when you look at the LASA numbers that will be public, it's a different number. And I read the story, so I knew exactly what he's talking about. And there's other entities that use different numbers. But I'll close with this, since I heard that Maxine Waters is responsible for, she's the congressperson that oversees the thing. So Maxine Waters, there was an area that was bordering LA City and LA County, and it was a street that had like dual jurisdiction, one of those where the median separates a place, and there was a big thing, and Maxine Waters had come out because she wanted to address it, and I never had met her. Well, we met her along with the host team there that day, and she got to see, and at the beginning she wasn't very happy we were there, and I'm saying this and I think it's being broadcasted. She actually asked me to step away. And I told her, that's fine, but by the end of the day, you're gonna see how this works. She saw the host model in action. She then engaged with the deputies and with the homeless providers. Every single person on that median took help that day, and it went from a massive homeless encampment to a pristine, clean 6 hours. We found out they had complained about that location to LA City for over 2 years. The host team did it in 6 hours, start to finish, using our exact protocol that I never finished. So I'll do that in closing. Step 1 was identification, 2 is assessment. See, Bill, what we talked about? 3 is outreach. The outreach continues, same deputies, same outreach providers, same MET teams, same clinicians. That's what builds the trust. Number 4 is posting. There comes a time and place where we have to say, we're going to come clean this. There was a judicial decision against a municipality that didn't give someone that courtesy, and they lost a lot of money in a decision. So it's important that you do that. And the judge said basically, give someone the respect and the kindness to let them know you're coming, right? So posting and then cleanup. What happens on the day of a cleanup? Well, when we clean it up, what if she's still sitting there? She's not going to jail, but she has a truckload full of stuff. In LA County, we can still address that. We will store her property for 90 days. It's in our policy. Her property is documented. She's given a receipt. It's stored. She's allowed, she knows where it'll be. And we cover all that because why? Everything we do is grounded in being constitutional and adheres to the constitutional rights that she has. That's why we don't have the lawsuits other than the one that they're involved with relating to homeless encampments, because we follow our process. It's strictly rooted in the foundational principles of the Constitution, morality, and legal decisions. And then lastly, and if I said lastly 3 times, I'll hear about it. You can only help her when you find out the root cause, because the symptoms are all over the place. And to one of the questions he had earlier about mental health, addiction, it covers so many things. People become homeless for familiar reasons and business reasons, work reasons. We have found people from every walk of life. Now, what happens once you're there for a while? People who are not mentally ill and who are not addicted to substances, they do things to cope. So you have all these things combined into one. And so that's why we don't paint a broad brush. We talk with everybody individually, and that's why the host model works. And that's an important thing, because you can't do this with one policy. It has to be individualized. So dealing with the root cause and then taking the time to find out what it is, that's how it works. And it can be done. The pictures he showed us in Centennial Park are horrific. We're already getting calls of violence there. And I think there was a shooting at the library last week. But there's only one host team. And we're responsible for the high fire danger zones in Topanga Canyon all the way to San Gabriel Valley, Lancaster, Palmdale, all the way down to Carson. And so we would love to have an additional host team, but it's a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We got persistence has to pay off. So let's hear from these lovely ladies over here. That's a very good question. And in fact, I'd like Jeff handle that one.
And I didn't cover that either. One of the things that we found in using the host model is, now you have your traditional shelters and city-sanctioned shelters, county-sanctioned shelters, interim housing, bridge housing. There are a lot of different housing. What we also found is there was a lot of non-government funded housing. Some are, some aren't. There's a gentleman here named Brian Olf, raise your hand, Brian, who does shared housing. What we found was people gravitate towards things that are right. When we were in Venice, which was controversial at the beginning, but to me that was a human rights project, there were people coming from all over Southern California saying, we have this project, we'll take anybody that'll come. And it was happening day after day after day. The sheriff would call me, hey, we have another group that wants to take people. And there's all kinds of private entities that didn't fall under certain restrictions that could take people where we could simply drive them straight there. So here in LA County, there are many places, because a lot of people don't like a certain thing. And then we found out there were places where you couldn't bring your dog. That's ridiculous. So we helped change policies working with other people for someone to take their animals. So there are many ways to take people there today. COVID has messed it up a little bit because of restrictions and quarantine and those things. There's all kinds of different projects, but there's a lot. Does that answer your question?
Can I add something? Part of what, and I will just say thank you, Nina, right? Thank you for letting me borrow this jacket because I'm freezing. But part of what we're trying to do is increase shelter capacity significantly, because we acknowledge there's not 40,000 beds in the city, 66,000 in the county. And so what we're trying to do is get that shelter capacity up significantly in a way that is respectful and humane and that gives people a place to go. So that's part of the lawsuit, is to actually provide those beds.
Did that answer your question? Go ahead. Okay.
The question was, what about the veterans? How long will they be on the streets?
Well, if it was up to us, there would never be a veteran on the street. Now, there is, right? And there are. So there's different programs. Obviously, you know about the current program where we were involved, where we used the host model, working with our partners. We even worked with people that didn't like us, and that's okay too, because sometimes you need to have a voice on the other side, and disagreements can bring you to the middle. Using the host model on the LA County protocol at the San Vicente encampment outside the VA, every single person got placed. Now, it's not perfect, and I respect that too. Every single person got off the sidewalk. So we look at that as step one. Now, I'm not in charge of the VA. The sheriff may be able to talk a little more about that. But our number one concern was that no more vets get hurt out there, and wanted to have a sanitary, clean place to be. Without going too much deeper, yes, we agree with you, no vets should be on the streets. Every deputy other than me that went to that was a veteran. A lot of the host deputies that are here are veterans, and it made them sick to their stomach, and it made him pretty upset that there was a vet on the sidewalk. And a lot of people don't know what he did behind the scenes to make that happen. Maybe someday he'll tell it, I'm not going to, out of school. But he was very upset when he got there and saw the conditions that veterans were encountering on the sidewalk. And I'm telling you right now, the sheriff stood up huge for the veterans there, and we still do. We're not finished, but we're not part of the VA, so it does convolute that. And I'll well, so that's one of the things, we're a humble group. We don't really celebrate our success stories because we feel there's many avenues for help, to your point. So if you took somebody who has a substance abuse problem and you give them a motel room on the 3rd floor and they've been living in the streets for 7 years and all of a sudden they're in a hotel room and they're alone now and they don't know what to do, and next thing you know they jump off the roof. So putting them in that housing actually hurts them. So what we found using our model that I described earlier and addressing someone and getting them the help, the proper help they need, and getting them into detox. And that's why we adore him, because shared housing, we know, saves people's lives. Because if we put them in that room and they're sitting there, I went and visited someone and they were sleeping on the floor when they have a brand new bed right there, and he's like, I don't know how to sleep on a bed. And so we call him as much as we can. But to see someone go from the boardwalk to detox, get a shower, get clean, be fellowship with their peers, it's an amazing thing to see. And it happens every day. But we don't put that, hey, look at this, look what I did. We humbly drive home with a smile. And that's why I'm proud of the deputies and the work that they do, and people like him that come to help us. Because it's a different environment, because not only do they help people get clean, they help them get back into society the way it's supposed to be, incrementally. And it's cool. We could talk all night about that. But
Thank you, sir.
It shows the differences.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. You both answered a lot of our questions. And final remarks?
You know, there's another big aid is the Salvation Army. In Bell, they run a shelter for veterans, and we were able to place quite a few people from the Venice Boardwalk at that Bell shelter. And we also did a fundraiser where we took the sheriff's patch and we made a camo version of it, a veteran's patch. And the deputies wear it during the month of November in honor of veterans. And we raised about, I think, $16,000 or $17,000, and we donated that towards the Bell shelter. And so there's a lot of different avenues that we have to raise money, raise awareness, and get that shelter space.
Final remarks, sir? They answered a lot of our questions, both of them.
Oh, that was
it.
That was everything. Wow. Well,
Yes.
we still got, over there we got a question. That is one of our problems right now. We have an Office of Diversion and Reentry. However, and a lot of money has been thrown at them, but it has not translated into an uptick in the capacity to offer bed space for people that are exiting either the jail system or the prison system. And so a lot of the homeless encampments that we saw around the city of LA were driven by when we released that many people from the county jail because of the pandemic. We saw a concurrent increase in pop-up tents around the downtown corridor. So there was a correlation there, and that is one of the challenges. Right now in our jail population, about 30% have self-identified as being transient or have no address. So that means on the street they're going to be couch surfing or they're going to be in a tent somewhere. And that definitely is something we need to address. Oh, by all means. In fact, if you could please talk to Lieutenant Kitchen right there. Sir, the gentleman behind you.
Your department's clearance rate in property crime and violent crime is 9% and 47% respectively, with a $3.5 billion budget that's been increased by nearly $1 billion since 2012. What steps will you take to militarize the department for resources such as housing, dock training, education that will keep people safe and prevent more tragedies from occurring in the first place, since your department statistically is neither preventing or solving crime at a high rate? Breaking holders, a holder was unarmed and shot in the face with a high-powered rifle in the middle of traffic.
Okay, is there a question in here?
Yeah, no, there's a question. By your deputies, if you have yet to meet with the family or place the deputies on leave pending the investigation. The question that was in there is, what steps will you take to demilitarize the department since you're neither preventing crime or solving crime at a high rate? 47% for violent crime and 9% for property crime.
Well, I can tell you this, your numbers on our budget is absolutely wrong, and all the public documentation we can offer you. Right now, our budget is $3.6 billion. That is 16% of net county costs, which is basically the county's general fund, 16%. All of the surrounding counties in LA, the lowest funding of their sheriff's department is 22% of net county costs. The highest is 38% of net county cost. We're right now the most understaffed law enforcement agency in the entire nation with 0.9 deputies per 1,000 residents. NYPD has 4 times the level of cops per resident. So when you have right now our violent crime or homicides in particular, which reports the solve rate, that is a direct correlation with the number of homicide investigators that are available. Right now, we're missing 25% of all our investigators. There are vacancies because we're not allowed to hire them. That impacts the solve rate. Property crimes, well, you can tell right now when people are not even reporting being victims of a property crime because of the lack of prosecutions from the DA, that impacts our property crime rate. And so those need to be addressed, and we'll try to do better, but we can only work with the resources we have, and we're going to keep looking for more. But if the implication is that somehow our budget should be reduced to provide services, that is an absolute non-starter, and the community overwhelmingly said, oh, hell no to that idea. We need to fund properly all those other issues, social services, mental health, substance abuse, but it should not be an either or where we're going to defund law enforcement to increase something else. That is not working, and it leaves the community very vulnerable.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry. Go ahead, ma'am.
Real simple right now. We have elections on June 7th, and you're in District 3, correct? Sheila Kuehl? No, supervisor. We need to get a good supervisor in office. We need a good supervisor. And I'll tell you this, and this is something important. Every opinion matters. We need to hear from the left, from the right, from moderates. And I poke fun at the woke crowd, but they have a voice that has to be heard. The problem is in county government, they are the only voice that is being heard. And that's why all the decisions are blowing up in their face. So we need to reestablish some balance here so we have counterpoints of view. And I know there's Democrats, there's Republicans in this room. And the fact that we can talk, that is a big plus. Because remember, we can argue all day long about who's yelling at who in Sacramento or in DC or who's in the White House. That does not matter as much as who your sheriff is, your DA, your mayor, city council, supervisor. Your local elected officials have the greatest impact on your life, and the average voter spends the least amount of time on their local elected official. We need to reverse that. The most important thing is who are your local elected people and what are they doing in office? And the fact is that we need to introduce moderation, compromise, heaven forbid, and having Republicans and Democrats come together on the issue of homelessness is a beautiful thing. Before you know it, cats and dogs will be hanging out together. But this is great because, and that's it. And I'm a lifelong Democrat of the FDR and JFK vintage, but I have friends on both sides of the aisle, and we're starting to get people starting to talk together. And that is our future as a community, as a nation, and we have to embrace that, embrace differences of opinion. It's not the end of the world. Listen to what somebody else says that is totally against what you're saying. Don't do it like the fools at the start of this meeting yelling, because they're not listening to anybody. Do it respectfully. Okay, now.
Okay, thank you. Sir, any other comments?
That is not a way.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody for your support. A big round of applause for Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Yay. And thank you, Jessica. Yay, Jessica.
Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate the hospitality. All right.